Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest edition of the World Report. I'm Scott Crowfoot. First, we'd like to say hello to Paul Nakins from Yuma, Arizona, and add him to our growing list of worldwide viewers. Glad to have you, Paul. Make sure you tell your friends. On today's report, Congress just passed another $1 trillion spending bill. Some here don't think it's all bad. We'll debate. Iraqi forces taking back territory from ISIS. That's a big story. An unbelievable rise in border crossings. The madness continues. Hillary plays the gender card. Trump responds. Good move or bad move for Mrs. Clinton. In our history segment, we'll discuss our 2015 Person of the Year. Now to our top stories. As 2015 is coming to a close, we discuss the winners and losers of the past year. And joining us as always with his sage insight is economics blogger for USA Today Online and the World Report senior analyst, Maury Beschloss, whom you can follow at Beschloss on Twitter. First, happy holidays, Maury.
Same to you.
2015, a lot of things happened. What stands out in your mind as some of the biggest events and stories of the past year?
I think the biggest event of the past year is the way the world is breaking up today, especially in the Middle East, and the fact that right now, as we speak, there is a basic disintegration of any kind of, even of a power base. The vacuum that has been created by us giving everything to Iran when we could have stopped them because our president didn't want to stop them. He applauded them. Do you remember in 2009, the so-called Arab Spring, which was the biggest joke of them all? They got rid of the so-called dictators who at least kept these people in line. And Saddam Hussein in Iraq would have been a lot better than what you got now, because Gaddafi in Libya, Saddam Hussein,
Mubarak in Egypt,
these guys kept control.
Assad in Syria,
because the Islamic disease has spread throughout the Middle East, and I'm not talking about the religion. I'm talking about the fact that this is a way of life. I compare Islamic extremism to Nazism. German people are great people, cultural, as far as engineering, as far as poetry, everything. Everybody respected Germany for the greatness of that country. And look what happened when the Nazis came in. They infected the whole people, and people followed them. And I think what you got in the Middle East today is the greatest danger. It's like a cancer that's spreading right out of the Middle East.
And I think that the biggest difference between those two is that you've got people that are basically guerrilla warfare. The Nazis were an army. They were a disciplined organization. These people could be sitting in the shadows without any reason at all.
You make a very good point.
Starbucks.
No, the Nazis themselves were just as like they were a dissolute lot until 1933. Hitler took over as chancellor in 1933, January the 30th, because Hindenburg, who was a reigning as dotage at that time, he died a year later, he was about 84 years old, thought they needed him to keep the communists from taking over. Communism was the things that the Germans really feared. And then once they got in there, you know about the Reichstag fire. They always needed a pretext in order to put the screws down, which they did when they themselves burned their own parliament.
Create a crisis. Took advantage of the crisis.
Took advantage of the crisis, exactly, and that's how. And they voided the Constitution. I'll say that every step they made sure that they did it constitutionally. There was Article 17 of the German Constitution that said, in case of a force majeure, meaning a crisis that threatens the basic standing of the country, the government takes over. Well, they used that, and every step of the way, little by little, they took more and more power, and within a year, Hitler not only took over, but he got the army to swear allegiance to him personally. A lot of people don't know that. You didn't declare allegiance to Germany, you declared allegiance to Adolf Hitler. The salute was Heil Hitler. It was a cult of the personality of the likes which we've never seen in the modern age. And this is how he took over. And the man, the best thing I can say for him, he was a highly disturbed psychotic. I mean, the guy, he wanted to see people killed, not only killing 6 million Jews and 5 million others, but when the German army cracked up because of the power of the Soviet army and the guns and tanks and planes of Britain and the United States, and the invasion on Normandy was closing in on him, he blamed the German people not fighting hard enough.
Well, that's one big story. Another big story is the rise of ISIS. This isn't their first year, but there was this year they really made an impact.
Yeah,
in the past 12 months.
I think the ISIS is really at the heart of I don't like to say radical Islam. I think if you go back 500-600 years in the Middle East, the Arabs were pretty much kept down, or they were under the thumb of the Ottoman Empire, which were the Turks, and the Turks were tough. I mean, they kept them down. So you had the Western Arabs in Morocco, who were much more easygoing, progressive, and then you had the Saudis, and you had the countries that make up the modern Arab states, which were done by over a table like we're sitting here. They had a napkin and they said, okay, France, you can have Syria and Lebanon. And the British wanted Iraq and they wanted to have the influence over Saudi Arabia. That's how they did it. And Wilson, whom we discussed in our last show, let them do whatever they wanted because he didn't want to get involved with it. So he created, as we said, and this is very important, and I remember my father saying that in the middle 30s, that Wilson's Versailles Treaty laid the groundwork for another war, which would be much more brutal and much more fatalistic than the one that was fought in the First War.
And now the rise of Trump. That's another big story of 2015. The fall of political correctness at the same time. This guy has thrown a wrench into everything.
You see, I look at it just a little different. I look at Trump as something I never would ever thought I would see in the United States. And I say that favorably because we need it so badly. We can't afford to have the politicians of either party, the Republicans and Democrats, it's not a good idea to make grandiose statements that cover everybody. They're good people, they're bad people. But the point is they get elected, and once they're elected, they become the creatures of Washington. And once they don't get reelected, what do? They work for a lobbying group. I mean, they got a career for the rest of their lives. And the only guy that is rich enough and powerful enough and has a personality to put through his ideas in a way that a lot of people think is not very nice is Donald Trump. You brought him up as a talking point. I'm saying he's more than that. I think it's something I never thought I would see in the United States, a man of that kind of strength. He doesn't need that. I mean, people say, oh, he's bombastic. He's not bombastic. He's saying things that just about everybody else is thinking. And he is bringing out in the average person people that never even thought about voting or even getting involved. They say, you know something, this guy is saying what we've been thinking all the time.
And like you just said, there's the culture of Washington. And I think that they've been caught by surprise, too, because they never expected an outsider like this to take this kind of control over the media, over both parties.
Well, it's interesting. Remember who they were talking about? Jeb Bush. I mean, come on. That's what we need is another Bush. We need him like another hole in the head.
Yeah.
Or you were talking about the governor of Texas. I mean, they're all nice people, but it would have been just a repetition of what we had before. Look at McCain. And look at Romney. I mean, Romney was a great businessman, good-looking guy, made a nice presentation, but he let himself be made a fool out of by Obama. Obama just cut him to little pieces.
And that's where you got to look at Trump and say, this guy is throwing political correctness, the political establishment, on its ear. They have no idea how to deal with this guy. No. And I don't know that they're going to figure it out before it's over.
But I think really speaking, he's not doing it for anything, but he really believes that he can make America great again. To people that are critical of him, and there's plenty of those, they say, oh, he's just doing that because he's stuck on himself and he's self-serving. No, he really believes what he says.
Yeah, because if you really were caring about your own personality and your own career, you would never go into politics. I mean, look at how Schwarzenegger, he got crushed during those 8 years that he was in politics. He'd have been much better off making movies. Everybody loved him.
Yeah, and
everybody loved Trump as a reality star. Now half the country hates him.
But you see, Trump is a guy that I think is a patriot. I think he's like the Tea Party 100 times over. He wants to see, I think the man feels America is going down a bad path, and he wants to reach. He does what I write about. I said America is a $100 trillion economy. We've got the greatest agriculture in the world. We've got the greatest technology in the world. We've got the most natural resources in the world. But we're fighting against ourselves.
And the worst politicians.
Not only that, though, we have people in charge now who want to destroy America. To me, the Environmental Protection Agency is like the Gestapo in Nazi Germany. They go and they don't have to have any consent. They go in there and destroy. Look at the coal business. Sure, coal isn't clean, but coal is used, especially the poor countries all over the world need it for heating and generating electricity. The people in Appalachia, they're starving now. I mean, this whole area is breaking up.
The last thing I want to say before we break from this segment, Trump is dragging the country and he's dragging the political class to places that they've tried to avoid. And they do not want to go where he's going.
I think they never understood it to begin with. They never thought it would happen in the United States of